In this new lesson about After Effects, we're going to start a new project and we're going to continue to explore what are the basic notions, like in theory, but also in practice in using this software and also similar software. We're going to focus mainly on graphic design basics. And I'm going to create a new project from scratch. So I'm going to click here. In the previous video, we created a new composition starting from images and created kind of a slideshow. And this is kind of a preset process that we can use to quickly create something to show how everything works in the big picture in After Effects. But now we're going to go more into depth and we're going to see some details about all these operations. So I'm just going to create a new project also from here. And as soon as we do a new project, again, we can choose to create a new composition right away from here, or a new composition for footage, which is going to fill up this area right here. But we also can go directly in the project panel, and we're going to focus our attention mainly on this area of the interface. So I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, and also I'm going to make this a little bit smaller because we will need more this area right here. So what I'm going to do in the project panel is start to bring in some assets inside the project. Now remember that you can always change here the interface, and if you want, if you click on these three dots, you can reset to the save layout. This is kind of the standard, and here what I've done is just click and drag this and make this bigger, and here I make this smaller just by clicking and dragging like this. So when I want to import multimedia files inside my project, not yet inside my composition, I'm going to go here and go to File and go to Import, and I can choose File Multiple Files from Libraries, Import Adobe Premiere Pro, or other different types of file. So I'm going to go with File. I'm going to import a single file, and I want to use a simple photo. So I want to get a photo here from my folder. And it's going to be like vertical photo in this case. I don't care. It's just to show you what's going to happen, and especially here in the project panel. So you can see now I have a file, but I don't have a composition. So I can continue to bring in different types of files in here. And in this lesson, we're going to concentrate more on images. So this is a JPG image, meaning that it has only 3 channels of color and it doesn't have an alpha channel for the transparency. And I'm going to explain this again more into depth in just a minute. Now, what we can do already is click and drag here in the project panel. We can make this even bigger. And we can see we have a series of columns because this is what the project panel is. It's kind of a management panel when we can see all the data and information about this particular file in this case. So we can see the size, we can see that it's JPEG or JPG, and we can click here and navigate by scrolling horizontally. And you see we have many columns. We don't have, for example, a frame rate. We don't have a input output because this is not yet a video or a composition, so it doesn't have like a duration and so on. But it does have the a file size info right here. So if we go to video info, this is like the size of this. It's not a video, but it's an image, but it's the size that is gonna occupy when I'm gonna bring this into a video. It's gonna have about 4K pixel resolution, which means around 4,000 pixel resolution, and the pixel ratio will be 1, so it's going to be square pixel, standard square pixel. So that's the basic information. Now if I click and drag this in here, it's going to create automatically a composition. So this is another way I can create a composition. And now that I have a composition, you can see we have an extra file here. And if we look closely, it's going to have a frame rate that is 30, almost 30 frame per second. And it's going to have an in point of 0 and an out point of 30, which means it's going to last 30 seconds. Now, this time code works like this. These are hours, then you have minutes, seconds, and frames. And then you can see the same exact video resolution of that image. So it inherited that from the image. And also, this is a similar situation that we saw previously when we created a composition starting from a file. Now let's bring in other files. Also, you can right click in here and you can import from here. You can import Photoshop, Cinema 4D, we're gonna see those later. And we can create a new empty composition, but we're gonna see also this later. I'm gonna just import here. And you can also use recent footage. So if you already imported something before, you can use recent files. Let's just go to File, Import, and I'm gonna import another type of image, which is a PNG. And I will find this in here. This is a folder with my logo. I'm gonna import like this purplish logo. And again, you have some options here, but this is not gonna be a sequence, it's not gonna be a composition right away. So I'm just gonna leave everything as it is and just click on Import. Now, the difference between JPEG and PNG is that PNG also has the alpha channel, which means I can see through that image. So another way that I can bring this is either click and drag directly on the composition, just as we did with the previous file, or I can also bring it directly in the timeline. That's another way. So it's going to bring it right in that time where you see the initial part of this track. So if I click and drag my CTI in here, you can see the logo will appear and it will be transparent. It means that it doesn't have like a white background and I can see through this. So this is what it means to have an alpha channel, which is an extra channel more than the RGB. So if I also turn off this, you can see that I can now work with two different layers down here in the timeline. For this composition, I can click on the little eye icon and turn something off and on. So if I turn this off, the image on the background, I will see the actual background of the composition, which is a black background. Now let's finish also with the video. So I'm gonna go to File, Import, and I'm gonna use one of the videos that I recorded for this course. So I'm gonna go for the previous lesson. So it's gonna be the lesson 2. And you can see this is a little bit different from the others. It contains more information. So it already has a size, a frame rate, and in point, out point. And if I go here again, you have a file path. This is also really important. We're going to talk about this later. And then video info. You can see this is full HD, which means about 2000 times 1000 pixels. And so it's kind of half size of the rest of the images and media that we already imported. So if I click and drag this inside, you can see it's going to be way smaller than the rest. And it's going to be now overlapping to the logo. Now, this depends on how layers are organized down here. So you can turn off, turn on layers. You can also click and drag them down. So if you click on this one here, well, you can also move it horizontally. So if you click here, it's going to move horizontally. If you click on the icon here, click down, it's going to move it instead on the layers. So now we have arranged the 3 different elements a little bit differently. Okay, so another important part of the timeline is this little zoom feature, zoom tool that you have at the bottom. So this is letting you go more into the details here. So you can zoom in the part of the timeline that you're interested in, or you can zoom out to see the whole composition, which goes from 0 to 30 seconds at the moment. And it's gonna end there. Now we'll talk more about the timeline, the composition panel later. I wanna focus more on the project panel. Now, if you click on these 3 little lines, for example, you can close the panel. And well, when the panel closes and disappears, where can you get it back from? You can go to Window and go all the way down here. This is kind of the most important panels or palettes that you have. And of course, one of these is Project. So if you click here, it's going to open up the project panel again. You can click and drag and position this right here. So you can close, undock, but we're going to see some of these later. Let's go down here and you see you also have columns. So this panel is basically a set of columns. So if you want to see more about this file that you imported, you're just gonna have to insert other columns with other pieces of information. Now you can also do it from here. Right click, be careful because depending on where you click, you can do different commands. So if you right click here, you're gonna have this option. If you right click here, you see we can continue to import file. And if you right click here, you have other options. So depending on where you click, it's gonna give you different options when you right click with your mouse. So if I right click here on this bar where the columns are, I can manage the columns also from here. So perhaps I want to add a duration and a date. And now I have a lot of, so I can move back and forward with this scrolling horizontal bar to see what's happening in here. So you can see videos contain more information usually than images. So it's going to tell you the duration, it's going to tell you the out point, in point, media start, media end, and so on. We're going to talk about those later. And again, the date, the size, and the link. Now you can also click here on each one of these to have more information there on the top. You see here is telling me that this is millions of colors, which means it has a high color depth. And we're gonna see also this in just a minute. Let me finish here with the columns. So if I right click, for example, I can hide one of these column. For example, tape name, I don't care about this. I'm gonna hide this. Comment, I'm gonna hide this. Date, I'm not really interested in date as well. And well, sometimes some of these can be useful to arrange. So you can click on these little arrows and make, a list with ascending or descending order. You can sort these differently if you want. So this is also why columns can be helpful. And then we have also other features here in the project panel, but right now I just wanted to focus on this, and then we're gonna come back here later on. I want to show you another interesting panels, which is not visible here in the default interface, which again, by the way, you can always reset. We will also save changes and create our own interface, but for now, let's keep it like this. So I'm gonna go to Window, and I'm gonna go to search for Info panel. There it is, or Control+2 shortcut key. Now the Info panel is really interesting because it's gonna give us the RGB codes and the alpha channel. Is going to tell us if there is an alpha channel or a transparency in a point of our composition. And also it's going to tell us about the X and the epsilon in terms of pixels, because when you work in multimedia or graphic design or video editing, wherever, they're going to use pixels and they're going to use X and epsilon coordinates. So if I now roll over with my mouse on some areas of my composition, let me go here where the composition is a little bit more interesting. So you can see that wherever I go with my mouse, it's going to tell me the R, G, and B colors in that particular pixel, red, green, and blue values essentially, and then the alpha channel. 255 is like the highest value for each channel. So I have like 255 variants for the red, 255 values for the green, 255 values for the blue, and then we have the alpha channel, which now is at the top. It's 255, which means the highest point of opacity in this case. If I have 0, for example, outside here, I have 0 alpha, it means that it doesn't have any opacity. There are no pixels in there. So RGB alpha, X and epsilon. So if I go up here, you should see that X and epsilon is 0, 0. This is the origin of our Cartesian world, which basically is composed by X, epsilon, in this case, because we are in 2D. So we have X going from left to right and epsilon going from the top to the bottom. And if we switch in 3D, which we can do, we're going to have an extra coordinate, and it's going to be the Z. It's going to be like the depth of our world. In this case, we are working in a 2D environment, in a 2D world. Now, if I go with the cursor on the left, I'm gonna have negative x value. If I'm gonna go up, I'm gonna have negative epsilon value. So positive x will go to the right, positive epsilon will go to the bottom. And this is kind of the basics of colors and the space, which again is made of pixels. If I scroll my wheel on the mouse, I can zoom in this composition. And if I zoom like the best zoom, which is 400%, this is the maximum, I can already see some pixels. So now you see all these variants. These are single squares, little squares with different colors. That's the pixel. Now I can also use the zoom right here. I can make it fit, and let's see, for example, well, I want to go like in that area, so I need also to pan. To pan, I will hold the spacebar, click and drag. So you can see here clearly the pixels on this icon, for example. So each single pixel has a different color identified by the RGB values. And it has only a unique position on the X and epsilon. I'm just gonna go back now to, let's do like fit up to 100%. So it's gonna fill the screen. Okay, now what I wanna do is turn off the layers except this one here that contains the alpha. So you can see alpha is at 0 here, but as soon as I get on the image, it's going to be 255. Now, before we continue, let's recap for the less expert of you. Some of you are beginners, they don't know anything about this, but some of you probably are more experts, so just jump ahead if you want. So basically, resolution is how many pixels we have in our screen, in our device. And usually we have the most common, the most popular format, which is Full HD. And then we have like HD ready here, 720 pixels in terms of height. And then we have this one here, and then 480 and so on. So we have different resolution. Also increasing, so we have like 2K, 8K, and so on. These are based on how many thousands of pixels we have, essentially. So if you want to know more, just look into Google, you'll find all the answers. Now, also important is the RGB color depth. Now, RGB again are red, green, and blue. Each one of these contain 256 variations. If you multiply that value by 3, you get about 16, 17 millions of colors. So this is called also 8-bit depth. You also have like lower bit depth or lower color depth, like 6 or 4. You can also have higher, like 16-bit or 24 or 36. Now, in this case, we're working with 8-bit. And then we have also other color system, not only red, green, and blue, but also, for example, HSL or HSV, which means hue, saturation, and luminosity or lightness or brightness, depending on how it's called. Can also be called like HSB, for example, depending on, again, the file system. You also have two different systems. One is for devices like videos and anything that runs on the screen, usually uses RGB, which are additive colors. And usually when you print, you use CM, epsilon K, which are for printing, and they're called also subtractive colors. You can also use hexadecimal values to find a particular color. This is a website here called HTML color codes that are gonna help you find the hexadecimal value and the correspective RGB values. So again, from 0 to 255, and then also HSL. So you have like some converters that can help you to convert RGB into CM, epsilon K, or into HSL, and so on. And finally, we have the fourth channel, which is the alpha channel. This is kind of an invisible channel, and it's usually black and white, but can also be like scale of gray. Now, the white means that the image will be opaque and visible. The black means it's going to be transparent and invisible. and the gray is kind of a middle way in that sense. So you have some, again, examples here of the final image with the background, and sorry, without the background, and then the initial image with the background and with the alpha channel applied, so with the removed background. And again, you can explore more of these, and if you're interested, you find also courses in Photoshop, GIMP, other graphic design. So if you're interested, check them out in the channel. You will find a lot of these topics in searching in the guides or in the courses. Now let's go back here and let's finish with another really important basic notion. I want to go in the folder where I got the image from. So right here, what happens if this image is deleted, or simply you change the name of that image? Let's, for example, add here an X, or you can also like change the name of the folder where this image is contained. What's going to happen? Let's go back here. Well, After Effects is going to tell you that a file could not be found. So when you import from the external world, you need to maintain that link. Otherwise, assets will get lost. You will not be able to see them in your composition. So let's say okay, and let's see what happens here. So now the image has turned into this visualization here. We are able to see this because it's kind of pre-rendered file. So let me just save this. Let me save this as lesson 03B. Okay, and then I'm just gonna create a new project. So I'm gonna end that session. I'm gonna reopen that in the recent. Okay, now see what happens. That image is lost. So what we saw there is before was kind of a ghost of the image. The actual image is lost. We don't have that link anymore. You see, it's telling me here in this management panel that is missing. So what I do now? Well, I need to change that. I need to either find that image somewhere in my computer or just substitute that with another image. And to do that, I'm going to right click again here in the project panel, and I can do replace footage with a file, or I can reload, try to reload and see if it's going to solve the problem. Well, it doesn't. So I need to go here, replace the footage, go to the file, and try to find it. So let me go back in the photos, or I can just substitute that with something else. So I can like use perhaps this other image. There you go. So I have another image right now on the same place of that one. Or if I want the exact image, I need to find it again. So I'm gonna go to replace and this one here and import with that new name. So what I'm trying to say here is that things are not embedded into After Effects. These are linked and they are connected to an external file. If you lose that external file, if you change the name, if you do anything to the folder where it's stored, if this path changes, that's going to be a missing file and it's not going to be visible when you're going to render out your final video. So be careful, create a folder and store everything that you need for the project in that folder. Keep an eye on that and don't lose content, because then you're gonna either change it or need to retrieve that file that has been changed. So this will be all for this lesson. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please subscribe to the channel. If you want to thank us, support us, please join the channel as a supporter. Check out other courses and guides that you find in the channel. See you in the next lesson.